Good morning, everyone. We're going to continue looking at 2 Kings, at our first pass through some of this. But before we do, let's have a word of prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we are thankful for the time that we have here this morning, for each person that's here. And as we open your word, Lord, we ask for clear minds and a receptive heart. We know, Lord, that there's so much that we need to learn. So we just ask for your Spirit to speak to us and for you to correct us where we are in error. We know, Lord, as we think about this world situation that exists in this world, we know, Lord, that it's very confusing to people. And we just pray that we can be a light to those that are in darkness, and that your Spirit can do its work upon hearts all around us. So help us as we study, guide and direct. We pray this in Jesus' name. Okay, so we went through chapter 4, and I know there's lots of symbols there, and I keep thinking about it, just not knowing really what to do. So these stories of Elisha, we're just gonna move to chapter 5. It doesn't mean that we've done with chapter 4, but I want to get through these chapters and kind of see if there's some structure of this whole section that maybe we could place this together. So one is we just had in chapter 4 dealing with the widow with the oil, and then we had the water that needed to be healed, right? And so then we have the story of Naaman. So there's just lots of things, I think about these stories when I used to read them to my kids, not just in Bible stories, but even from the Bible, because they were familiar to the kids from the stuff we bought, as the Cole Porter books have some of these stories in them as well. And there is a lot of symbolism here, but it's the things that I wouldn't have paid attention to before was the numbers. So even then I wasn't thinking about, do the numbers have symbols? But we're going to read through this chapter and see what we find. I still have a bit of a cold, so I might have to cough here and there. But now Naaman, captain of the host of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master and honorable, because by him the Lord had given deliverance unto Syria. He was also a mighty man of valor, but he was a leper. So the Lord, or Jehovah, had given deliverance unto Syria. Now, it doesn't say who deliverance would be from, but I would assume it would be from Assyria. That's just a guess. I haven't thought about it before. But we can see that there is this influence in Syria. Now, Naaman, so we look obviously at the definitions of these words. It means pleasantness. So it actually is a name that occurs in the family of Benjamin, son of Bela, of the family of Benjamin. So there is another Naaman. So there's two Naamans in the Bible. And he's a leper. So it's the scourge, as it is there. Similar to Naomi. Yes, you're correct there. Some similarity. Okay. And the Syrians had gone out by companies and had brought away captive out of the land of Israel a little maid, and she waited on Naaman's wife. And she said unto her mistress, Would God my Lord hear with the prophet that is in Samaria? So that's kind of an awkward sentence. For he would recover him of his leprosy. So it's kind of like, I wish to God that my Lord was with the prophet in Samaria, for he would recover him of his leprosy. And one went in and told his Lord, saying, Thus and thus said the maid that is of the land of Israel. And the king of Syria said, Go. So these are two different words. It's not a doubling in Hebrew. It's halak, bo, right? And I will send a letter unto the king of Israel. And he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver and 6,000 pieces of gold and 10 charges of raiment. So it's quite a bit. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, saying, Now when this letter is come unto thee, behold, I have therewith sent Naaman my servant to thee, that thou mayest recover him of his leprosy. And it came to pass, when the king of Israel had read the letter, that he rent his clothes and said, Am I God to kill and to make alive, that this man doth send unto me to recover a man of his leprosy? Wherefore consider, I pray you, and see how he seeketh a quarrel against me. And it was so, when Elisha the man of God had heard that the king of Israel had rent his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, Wherefore hast thou rent thy clothes? Let him come now to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman came with his horses and with his chariot, and stood at the door of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent a messenger unto him, saying, Go and wash in Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. So here again we have the exact same 7 times that we had in the previous chapter with the sneezing, right? That's when Elisha raises the child. So we have that story. And again, we note Capricar's constant digits in the word times, together with the word 7, which is the same word in Leviticus 26, same Hebrew number, Sheba. Shall come again to thee, and thy flesh shall be clean. Okay, but Naaman was wroth, and went and said, Behold, I thought he will surely come out to me, and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, and strike his hand over the place, and recover the leper. Are not Abana and Pharpar, rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? May I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned and went away in a rage. And his servants came near and spake unto him, and said, My father, if the prophet had bid thee do some great thing, wouldest thou not have done it? How much rather then, when he saith to thee, Wash and be clean? Then went he down and dipped himself 7 times in Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God, and his flesh came again, like unto the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. Okay, so if we take this story, so we still have Gehazi to deal with here in this story, but this part of this story, we clearly have the 7 times. Now, we have the Jordan. So what is the Jordan as a symbol? And if we put the 7 times with the Jordan, is there anything that we could see with that symbol? And we have this comparison also of these other rivers, right? Abana, which means ebony. So that's what Abana means. It should go on here. Yeah. It means through the meaning of to build a stone, a carbuncle. Okay, so that's where it comes from. But the word itself, according to Strong's, it means ebony. And then Pharpar, it comes from the word 6565, but the number itself is 6554. It means a sense of rushing, a rapid. So like rapids. Okay, so he mentions these 2 rivers. So I don't know what to do with this. We see the symbols, but how we would take this story on its own. I mean, I don't know how I would draw a line with this, right, by itself. That's why I have a feeling that these stories are all part of a structure. Any thoughts about this story?
There's a very vague recollection of you having a line of numbers, and I remember something about dividing 5 by 12 or 12 by 5. So you got 2 Kings 12 there.
Yeah. And
so you remember it. But what was it in reference to?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. I get these glimpses of things. but not the full thing. It's so frustrating.
Yeah. So I
But
don't know.
if it's rapids, I'm thinking of Ellen White's statement about the last days would be the events in the last days would be rapid ones, and we're certainly seeing that.
Hmm. Yeah. But the idea that these stories are all part of a bigger structure, that we would take the stories here, yeah, about Elisha, and they would be one line is what I'm thinking. Because I don't see enough symbols within each of these stories themselves to be lines.
Really?
Just, because either they just overlap and they become part of a line in that way, or they're all separate waymarks within a line.
Well, just the fact that the prophet laid on top of the child when he was reviving him shows that things are overlapping. A lot of parallels.
Yeah. So, but I don't see the picture yet. Often, I see when we first start reading something, I kind of see how it fits. But here, that's just my, we could call it intuition, which is just a fancy word. I think that, there must be some structure here with this, that we have to look at all of these stories to see. And so we just note some of these, because if we're going to overlap, and then these 7 times would be connected. Right? And of course, we already understand the significance of the 7 times. So Gehazi, we're going to deal with him now. And he returned to the man of God, he and all his company, referring to Naaman, and came and stood before him and said, Behold, now I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. Now therefore, I pray thee, take a blessing of thy servant. And he said, As the Lord liveth, before whom I stand, I will receive none. And he urged him to take it, but he refused. And Naaman said, Shall not then, I pray thee, be given to thy servant 2 mules, burden of earth? For thy servant will henceforth offer neither burnt offering nor sacrifice unto other gods, but unto the Lord. In this thing the Lord pardon thy servant, that when my master goeth into the house of Rimmon to worship there, and he leaneth on my hand, and I bow myself in the house of Rimmon. When I bow down myself in the house of Rimmon, the Lord pardon thy servant in this thing. So in verse 17, Naaman said, Shall there not then, I pray thee, be given to thy servant 2 mules, burden of earth? For thy servant will henceforth offer neither burnt offerings nor sacrifice unto other gods, but unto the Lord. So Naaman is converted. He's going to not offer to other gods. And he's saying, I can give you 2 mules, right? Now, of course, mules are a mixture of a horse and a donkey or an ass, right?
But it's 2 mules burden of earth. It's the earth, isn't it?
What's that?
It says 2 mules burden of earth. Isn't it the earth that the mules are carrying?
I don't know. I'm not sure that I just think that their burdens. It's not talking about dirt. Yeah. So burden of earth here is what you're talking about. So it's country, earth, ground, husband, land. There's all the different ways it can be translated. The interesting thing here, of course, is we run into this 11:9 symbol, because that word 127, which is earth, which has the symbol of July 18, comes from the Hebrew word 119. So we got 11:9, you got July 18. Symbols in there. But we also have these mules. Now, the word itself, semed, that is a team or a pair. So now it can be oxen, things like that, but because he refers to it as burden of earth, that's why it's a mule. Okay? Does that make sense? Whether 2 mules. So it's just a pair of animals. That's why I think they're translating it as mules. Well, it could also be, so there's 2 words. So it probably is the 6505. Didn't see that number. Why is that not showing up? There it is. Oh, so it is mule. So a pair of mules. So, and then burden. That's the word massa, which means to bear, right? So a burden, to load. So bearing, carrying sometimes refers to an oracle or a burden. That's where I'm more familiar with the word, where it talks about this, the burden in the prophets. It's Jeremiah that uses that word, not mistaken. So there's a lot of symbolism in there. The word, the pair, is interesting because it's 6776. So it's the number is a palindrome. Yeah, so lots of different symbols in here that we need to see how they're going to fit once we put this all together.
Well, the 6505, the 5 and the 5 and the 6 remind me of the 6th year, the 5th day of the 5th month or something like that. Like it's almost the 6th year.
Yeah, but that's the 6 year, 6 month, 5th day.
Okay,
That's,
so it would be 665. Okay.
yeah, you would need another 6 in there.
Oh, well.
But yeah, so anyway, that's the word for mule. Now we know there's a hinny, and I always forget which one's which. So I think the hinny, the mother is a horse, and a mule, the mother is a donkey, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Yeah. So then he wants to be pardoned when he's pardoned. The fact that when he goes with his master, that he's in the house of Rimmon. So Rimmon here means pomegranate. So we've looked at that word before. Now the city of pomegranates is Jericho, right?
I thought it was the city of palm trees.
Oh, palm trees. That's palm trees. What's the pomegranate one then? Yeah, I was kind of thinking that didn't sound right, but where did we get the pomegranate before? No, it's not the city.
Song of Solomon.
No, we had pomegranate some other place.
Yeah.
Murderers of Ishbosheth. That's where we had talked about the pomegranate. That was the murderers of Ishbosheth. And the deity of wind, rain, and storm worshipped by the Syrians of Damascus, according to Bar Driver Spriggs. And there was the rock, a cliff or inaccessible natural fastness in which the 600 Benjamites who escaped the slaughter of Gibeah took refuge. That's where, the Rimmon, the rock of Rimmon. Town in the southern portion of Judah allotted to Simeon, and a Levitical city in Zebulun located approximately 6 miles north of Nazareth. So now it comes from this word 7416, which also, so Rimmon, we've run into that before. It has the digits of Capricar's constant, but that's just when it's the word pomegranate. When it's a name, right? So in Strong's, he's going to have then these numbers next to each other, not because they're spelled different or anything, but one is just a place or a proper name. And so when it's a person or a place, it's going to be one number more than when it's a thing. That's just how Strong's works. But it is 7416. So 6174 is Capricar's constant. So again, we have those numbers, those digits in this story, but hidden in that way, just one number less. And then he says, and I bow myself. Now, the word myself, 7812, has all the digits of July 18, 2020. And it's just the word shakah. We've run into this before with Saul bowing. Right. So here it's bow myself. That just has, the myself is not the word. It's actually to bow. The myself is just the form of the word. So that would be the ithpal form of the word. And he said unto him, go in peace. So he departed from him a little way. And there we have Kibra, length of the land, Eretz. So he departed from him the length of the land. Interesting. Okay, but Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said, behold, my master hath spared Naaman this Syrian, in not receiving at his hands that which he brought. But as the Lord liveth, I will run after him, and take somewhat of him. So Gehazi followed after Naaman, and when Naaman saw him running after him, he lighted down from the chariot to meet him and said, Is all well? And he said, All is well, my master hath sent me, saying, Behold, even now there be come to me from Mount Ephraim 2 young men of the sons of the prophets. Give them, I pray thee, a talent of silver and 2 changes of garments. And Naaman said, Be content, take 2 talents. And he urged him and bound him 2 talents of silver in 2 bags with 2 changes of garments, and laid them upon 2 of his servants, and they bare them before him. And when he came to the tower, he took them from their hand and bestowed them in the house, and he let the men go, and they departed. But he went in and stood before his master. And Elisha said unto him, Whence comest thou, Gehazi? And he said, Thy servant went no whither. And he said unto him, Went not mine heart with thee, when the man turned again from his chariot to meet thee? Is it a time to receive money, and to receive garments, and olive yards, and vineyards, and sheep, and oxen, and men servants, and maids? The leprosy therefore of Naaman shall cleave unto thee, and unto thy seed forever. And he went out from his presence, a leper as white as snow. Okay, so the story, this greed of Gehazi, is again one of the children's stories. So I don't know what to do with the story again. Right? There's lots in here.
Well, Gehazi represents those who are supposedly in God's service. They're called into God's service, but are using that role for their own gain.
Yeah.
So hypocrisy is really hit here.
Yeah, and it's a common thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I remember having this conversation with Jeff about, back years ago, when just talking about the different people that had joined the movement, the different motivations why different people made the decisions they did to reject the message, or to, like when in 2014, with all the different ministries that split. And, Jeff, he always thought it was much more, it was not really about money. But I always thought it was about money more, but it could be just our different perspectives, because I could see that some of the people, the decisions they made were sort of desperate situations. That is, they were looking at, they're doing a ministry, they're raising their families, money's going to Jeff, and Jeff has lots of money, and they don't have much. They're just scraping by in their ministries, and when you have a wife and kids, and you have the pressure of the home, that for some people can be quite difficult. So it's not that necessarily they were greedy in that sense, but they, the lack of faith and just accepting what you have. And sometimes, the pressure from a wife can be quite a bit on a guy. So I kind of understand. Jeff always thought it was more just some people like a lot of praise. So, but that's not something I can relate to. So maybe that's something Jeff could relate to. So, maybe that's why our different perspectives. I understand more the need of money and the desperation of money, because I raised a family with very little money. And so that was my sort of take on it. But Jeff's was more people just, like other people praising them, which is not something I've ever cared about. So I mean, maybe it's always a bit of both. And maybe there's different people have different motivations. But here, I always think about Gehazi's greed as along with Achan's, right? So the symbols here, he's going to ask for just, now he's not, he knows that this guy has lots of gold, lots of it, right? Lots of silver, all kinds of garments. Yet he's not going for, the gold. You just say, 2 talents of silver. I don't know how much that would be, if we're going to convert it into money nowadays. probably a fair bit, but we're going to have this two, right? So the doubling here, the 2 talents of silver, the 2 changes of garments. Of course, because he says there's 2, sons of the prophets that have come, right?
2 bags, 2. So many 2s in verse 23.
Yeah. So, we could say, well, that has something to do with the second angel's message. And then when he comes to a tower, right? So we've dealt with the tower before. This one's Ophel, so there are different words. So this is like also a mound or a fortress. It's also the same word for emerald, or stronghold tower. So he's going to take these from the hands of these two of his servants. He's going to put them in his house. So I guess his house is by a fortress or a tower. Maybe it is. And then he lets the men go. Then he's going to go to Elisha as if nothing has happened. But of course, Elisha knows what has happened. And then he's given an opportunity, but he's just, lies to Elisha. So he's going to have this leprosy upon him, right? So, there's a very direct story that we, that's why it's in children's storybooks, right? You got the really clear moral of the story: don't be greedy. But if we're going to be dealing with who he is and in the context and the symbols here, I would still look at this as having to do with our movement, right? So something within our movement that's being depicted here.
Well, Jeff compared himself to a leper without the camp at one point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But then, to try. Okay, Dwight?
That was after July 18th.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, it's fine. Yeah. So, we have all the doubling, the 2s, right? Which would be the second angel's message. But and then, of course, the 2 mules earlier on in that. Yeah. So I don't know. There's a lot to this story, but all we can do right now is pay attention to some of the symbols and think about them. Know how to take this story, just because most of the time when you have these stories, there is, for me, a clear line that I can see, but I don't see a clear line in each of these stories. They seem to be just symbols in and of themselves. So then we have another story, the axe head recovered, right? The sons of the prophet said unto Elisha, behold now, the place where we dwell with thee is too strait for us. Let us go, we pray thee, unto Jordan, and take thence every man a beam. Let us make a place there where we may dwell. And he answered, go ye. And one said, be content, I pray thee, and go with thy servants. And he answered, I will go. So we got one of the sons of the prophets saying to Elisha that basically the way that it's depicted in my Bible friends, I believe it is, we need another room in our school, right? So now it says, every man a beam. Let us go, we pray thee, unto Jordan, and take thence unto every man a beam or a rafter, right? So they're going to bring materials to build, right? So if everybody brings one of these rafters, then we should be able to build this place, right? So I'm not sure particularly what this beam would be, other than when I think about a rafter, and I've built a few houses. You got your rafters or your trusses, right? And they are run in parallel, right? How are they building this? I don't know. I would assume they're going to use some stone as well. So this is just for the roof part. But we could see that this could be line upon line. And maybe each of these stories are like a beam, right? They're building something. Okay. And one said, Be content, I pray thee, and go with thy servants. And he answered, I will go. So the sons of the prophet said unto Elisha this, and then one said, Be content, I pray thee, go with thy servants. And he answered, I will go. I'm not really sure who the one saying is, so we might have to look at that a bit. So he went with them, and when they came to Jordan, they cut down wood. But as one was felling a beam, the axe head fell into the water, and he cried and said, Alas, my master, for it was borrowed. So we have a beam, so they're going to be, so I guess the idea of every man taking a beam is just that they're going to cut down a beam, each person, right? They're not carrying it with them. They're going to cut down these trees, and his axe head is going to fall into the water. Okay. And he cried and said, Alas, my master, for it was borrowed. So he had a borrowed axe. And the man of God said, Where fell it? And he showed him the place, and cut down a stick, and cast it in thither. And the iron did swim. So this axe head is going to float. Therefore said he, Take it up to thee. And he put out his hand and took it. Okay. So a pretty straightforward story. And even just on the surface, it's a miracle. It's something we're seeing how Elisha has, twice the twofold portion of the spirit of Elijah, right? I think that's part of the reason of these stories. They're just these incidents in the story of Elisha, so that on the surface, that's how they would be seen. But if we look at this of the felling of the beam, and we say that this is line upon line, then we have this axe head falling into the water. Now, axe head is 1270, so that's the digits of July 21st backwards. But we have the water. So the water, of course, is 4325. Again, that's the number of inclusive days from 11/9 to 9/11. So the water here is significant. When we see this word water in the context of these stories, we see that period of time. Now, the axe head falling into the water. What is an axe head? What is, so we're going to have the axe head means iron. So that's the word itself is iron. 1270.
Something to do with Rome, modern Rome specifically?
Okay.
Papacy?
Possibly. It means to pierce. The word birzoth, yeah. Okay. But the word itself is barzel. So barzel, they say perhaps it comes from birzoth, meaning to pierce. But barzel is the word for iron. And of course, they're using the axe head to chop down a tree. So they're felling a beam. Okay. Yeah, to take down a beam. So the word beam, a rafter. Okay. So he loses the head of his axe anyway. That's how this is translated. And it was borrowed, 7592 sha'al, which is asked of, demanded, or so it's a word that can mean to inquire. So he had it by asking for it, right? So he cut down a stick, right, and cast it in thither, and the iron did swim. So if we're going to take this stick, a tree heads wood. So how big a stick, we don't know. And so it can be a plank, a staff, a stalk, a stick, timber, a tree, a wood. So he cast that in. 7993 shellac. So any other symbols we see here? Now, of course, we have this whole thing about the sons of the prophets. And this is about the school of the prophets, right? And this is the school of the prophets. It says when they came to Jordan. So I'm not sure particularly where they're building this, whether this probably is on the west side of the Jordan. near Jericho, I would assume. So they need a place because the place is too straight, that is too narrow or too small, right? Too tight. So they need more room. So they're working on the school of the prophets, right? They're doing some building. Now, of course, when I was at the school of the prophets in 2016, there was definitely building going on. They had moved the main building there onto foundation. When we got there, we were doing a little bit of work on it. Most of it was just renovating the place, but we didn't do a lot on that. There was others who were mostly working on it. And then in 2018, 2017, I was there just for a few weeks, and we did some work on the place. And in 2018, we were doing work on the other building, which we never did. We could have done so much work there, like actual work, and done stuff in 2018. Instead, we spent most of our time cleaning. It was ridiculous. We were not productive. That was the one thing that really bothered me about 2018 is the lack of productivity. So I don't know, but just dealing with this, where we would put this story, chapter 6 story. Okay. Then we have the next story. So the king of Syria warred against Israel and took counsel with his servants, saying, in such and such a place shall be my camp. And the man of God sent unto the king of Israel, saying, beware that thou pass not such a place, for thither the Syrians are come down. So the king of Syria and the king of Israel are having a war, and he's going to say to his servants, that is the king of Syria, in such and such a place, right? So there's where they're going to have their camp. So the man of God is going to tell the king of Israel, beware that thou pass not such a place, for thither the Syrians are come down. So he's giving him some counsel about where the Syrians are. Right? The king of Israel sent to the place which the man of God told him and warned him of, and saved himself there, not once nor twice. Okay, so it's kind of a strange expressions that are being used here. So he sent to the place. I don't really know what that means, because it can also mean send away, or conducted to the place which the man of God told him and warned him of, and saved himself there. So saved himself, shamar, guarded, attended, protected himself there, not once or twice. So I believe he's taking the advice of the man of God, which is Elisha. Therefore the heart of the king of Syria was sore troubled for this thing, and he called his servants and said unto them, will ye not show me which of us is for the king of Israel? So he believes that he has a spy in his midst. And one of the servants said, none, my lord, O king, but Elisha the prophet that is in Israel telleth the king of Israel the words that thou speakest in thy bedchamber. And he said, go and spy where he is, that I may send and fetch him. But it was told him, saying, behold, he is in Dothan. Therefore sent he thither horses and chariots and a great host, and they came by night and compassed the city about. And when the servant of the man of God was risen early and gone forth, behold, and a host compassed the city, both with horses and chariots. And his servant said unto him, alas, my master, how shall we do? And he answered, fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes, that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. And when they came down, And when they came down to him, Elisha prayed unto the Lord and said, Smite this people, I pray thee, with blindness. And he smote them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. And Elisha said unto them, This is not the way, neither is this the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom ye seek. But he led them to Samaria. And it came to pass, when they were come into Samaria, that Elisha said, Lord, open the eyes of these men, that they may see. And the Lord opened their eyes, and they saw, and behold, they were in the midst of Samaria. And the king of Israel said unto Elisha, when he saw them, said unto Elisha when he saw them, My father, shall I smite them? Shall I smite them? Right. So here we have a doubling, of course, and that number is 5221, which we have used as a symbol of December 25th, 2021. And he answered, Thou shalt not smite them. Wouldest thou smite those whom thou hast taken captive with thy sword and with thy bow? Set bread and water before them, that they may eat and drink and go to their master. And he prepared great provision for them. And when they had eaten and drunk, he sent them away, and they went to their master. So the bands of Syria came no more into the land of Israel. So what do we see in this story? I mean, first we're going to have quite an amazing story about Elisha, right? But we're going to have this, one of the servants of, where is it here? The servant of the man of God. He's concerned when he sees the city of Dothan, which they're at, encompassed with all of these, this army that surrounded the city. And then he's going to be given vision to see, right? Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee open his eyes that he may see. And then he's going to blind the eyes of the host of Syria, right? The army of Syria. And then he's going to open their eyes, and they're going to be in Samaria. So in this story, that has to do with seen and not seen. Any thoughts about this story? Any symbols that we can glean from this? Rule of mercy toward POWs. Yeah. So obviously there's, a lesson of trusting in God and mercy towards prisoners of war, but also it is a testimony of God's power, right? So it's a ministry to the people of Syria to see the power of God. But they're going to have their eyes open. They're going to be in Samaria. So this is northern Israel, of course. I don't know. Again, just as a story itself, I don't see how I could take this story by itself and say, oh, here's the line. I don't see enough to make it a line itself. And I think what I would look at, so if these are all either they lay on top of each other, that is, we pile these stories up on top of each other like an anatomy book, the transparencies in an anatomy book with the different layers, or these are just all together a line, that each one of these is a waymark. Those are the two options I can think of, what we would do with these stories. Maybe it's a bit of both, I don't know. But I just don't see how we can take this story by itself and make a whole line of it. It seems that we need to fit these together in some way. I'm looking at these all like a piece of a puzzle. And then we would have to say, well, if you looked at like an anatomy book, each transparency is a particular system, right? The skeletal system, the muscular system, or the nervous system, or the circulatory system, right? All these different systems laid on top of each other. And maybe we would need to take these stories and say, what are each of these stories addressing? Like, what are they? What is the characteristic of each of these stories? But again, I don't have a picture where I can place all of these. Okay. And then we got Ben-Hadad's siege of Samaria. Came to pass after this that Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, gathered all his host and went up and besieged Samaria. And there was a great famine in Samaria, and behold, they besieged it, until an ass's head was sold for 80 pieces of silver. So you got, again, a symbol of an ass. That's the common word, the male ass, kamor. Okay. So, and then ass's head, and of course with head you got 7218, you have the digits of July 18, 2020. It's going to be sold for 80 pieces of silver. So 80 pieces. So the word there is actually 80 in Hebrew. Shemonim. Okay. And the fourth part of a cab of dove's dung. So, I mean, this is not sure what they would need, how much a fourth part of a cab of doves. So that is a hollow. For 5 pieces of silver. So money's not worth very much. So there's this famine there. Obviously, that's just showing how severe the famine is. But we have 80 and then a fourth part. Now, 80, of course, is just 80 in Hebrew. And then the fourth part is rabah, which means a fourth part or a quarter, right? And as the king of Israel was passing by upon the wall, there cried a woman unto him, saying, Help, my lord king. And he said, If the Lord do not help thee, whence shall I help thee? Out of the barn floor or out of the winepress? So, though I'm not sure exactly what he's saying here, but so what is it particularly you need? They think the barn for food or drink. And the king said unto her, What aileth thee? And she answered, This woman said unto me, Give me thy son, that we may eat him today, and we'll eat my son tomorrow. So we boiled my son, and did eat him. And I said unto her on the next day, Give thy son, that we may eat him. And she hath hid her son. And it came to pass, when the king heard the words of the woman, that he rent his clothes, and he passed by upon the wall, and the people looked, and behold, he had sackcloth within upon his flesh. And he said, God do so, and more also to me, if the head of Elisha the son of Shaphat shall stand on him this day. But Elisha sat in his house, and the elders sat with him. And the king sent a man from before him. But ere the messengers came to him, he said to the elders, See ye how this son of a murderer hath sent to take away mine head? Look, when the messenger cometh, shut the door, and hold him fast. At the door is not the sound of his master's feet behind him. And while he yet talked with them, behold, the messenger came down unto him and said, Behold, this evil is of the Lord. What should I wait for the Lord? What should I wait for the Lord any longer? Okay, so we just keep going here. Then Elisha said, Hear ye the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord, Tomorrow about this time shall a measure of fine flour be sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel at the gate of Samaria. So here, food's going to be cheap. When a lord on whose hand the king leaned answered the man of God and said, Behold, if the Lord would make windows in heaven, might this thing be? And he said, Behold, thou shalt see it with thine eyes, but shalt not eat thereof. And there were 4 leprous men at entering in of the gate, and they said one to another, Why sit we here until we die? If we say, We will enter into the city, then the famine is in the city, and we shall die there. And if we sit here, we die also. Now therefore come, let us fall unto the host of the Syrians. If they save us alive, we shall live, and if they kill us, we shall but die. And they rose up in the twilight to go unto the camp of the Syrians. And when they were come to the uttermost part of the camp of Syria, behold, there was no man there. For the Lord had made the host of the Syrians to hear a noise of chariots, and a noise of horses, even the noise of a great host. And they said one to another, Lo, the king of Israel hath hired against us the kings of the Hittites, the kings of the Egyptians, to come upon us. Wherefore they rose and fled in the twilight, and left their tents, and their horses, and their asses, even the camp as it was, and fled for their life. And when these lepers came to the uttermost part of the camp, they went into one tent, they did eat and drink, and carried thence silver and gold and raiment, and went and hid it, and came again, and entered into another tent, and carried thence also, and went and hid it. Then said one to another, We do not well. This day is a day of good tidings, and we hold our peace. If we tarry till the morning light, some mischief will come upon us. Now therefore come, that we may go and tell the king's household. So they came and called unto the porter of the city, and they told them, saying, We came to the camp of the Syrians, and behold, there is no man there, neither voice of man, but horses tied and asses tied, and the tents as they were. And he called the porters, and they told it to the king's house within. And the king arose in the night, and said unto his servants, I will now show you what the Syrians have done to us. They know that we be hungry. Therefore are they gone out of the camp to hide themselves in the field, saying, When they come out of the city, we shall catch them alive and get into the city. And one of the servants answered and said, Let us take, I pray thee, 5 of the horses that remain, which are left in the city. Behold, they are as all the multitude of Israel that are left in it. Behold, I say, they are even as all the multitude of the Israelites that are consumed. And let us send and see. And they took therefore 2 chariot horses, and the king sent after the host of the Syrians, saying, Go and see. And they went after them unto the Jordan. And lo, all the way was full of garments and vessels, which the Syrians had cast away in their haste. And the messengers returned and told the king. And the people went out and spoiled the tents of the Syrians. So a measure of fine flour was sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel, according to the word of the Lord. And the king appointed the Lord on whose hand he leaned to have a charge of the gate. And the people trode upon him in the gate, and he died, as the man of God said, who spake when the king came down to him. And it came to pass, as the man of God had spoken to the king, saying, 2 measures of barley for a shekel, and a measure of fine flour for a shekel, shall be tomorrow about this time in the gate of Samaria. And the Lord answered the man of God and said, Now behold, if the Lord should make windows in heaven, might such a thing be? And he said, Behold, thou shalt see it with thine eyes, but shalt not eat thereof. And so it fell upon unto him, for the people trode upon him in the gate, and he died. Okay, so which king is this that dies in this way? Any thoughts on this?
Is it the actual king that dies? I thought it was the attendant, the guard.
What's that? It's the guard, not the king?
That's my understanding.
Okay, so I'm reading it wrong? Okay. So okay, I see. So that's what I'm reading that wrong. I'm having a hard time understanding this, the way that this is written. Also the way I'm reading it. And I'll show thee the Syrians have done to us. Okay, so the king is going to be the one that. So which king is this though in this story?
I think it's Jehoram.
Okay, so Jehoram. Okay, Jehoram of Israel. Okay, so when it says, so it's the Lord on whose hand the king leaned that said this. Okay, so that's the servant of the king. So that would be the king's advisor, counselor. What is that? The captain. Okay. Shalish, derived from shalash. So it's related to the word 3. They can be compared with the Latin tribunus. Okay, so this is the captain. Okay, so he's the one that dies. Okay, I was reading that wrong. So he's going to be trod upon in the gate.
Well, this chapter reminds me of Revelation 6 about the measures of wheat and barley and the prices.
Yeah, but we're dealing with the famine, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, not really sure again what to do with this story. I mean, we can see we have, a famine. Famines occur occasionally in sieges, not always, but depends how long the siege is, time of year that it occurs as well. So generally they do this just before the harvest. When the supplies in the city are low, that's when you're going to get most likely to starve people out. But now, it's kind of a strange story because you have the whole army fleeing and leaving everything. Like they don't get on their horses and flee. They just run for their lives. So of course, that doesn't really make much sense. Doesn't seem like a rational thing to do. And they're going to do that at twilight, so just as the evening comes. What I understand from what I read, right? Yeah, twilight, 5399. They rose up in the twilight to go unto the camp of the Syrians. So they come into the camp of the Syrians at twilight. Okay, so they must have fled during the day then? Or is this in the morning, this twilight? This is Neshef. Maybe this is in the morning, but it says here evening twilight. Okay, it says, they said one to another, we do not well. This day is a day of good tidings. Yeah, so it's going to be at evening. Because if we tarry till the morning light, right, some mischief shall come upon us. So they do this at the nighttime. So they're going to come at twilight, at sunset, and they're going to be there during the night. And so, yeah, okay. And they entered into another tent, carried that. So they're doing this at nighttime. And they said one to another, we do not well, this day is a day. So a day of good tidings. Day repeated twice, and we hold our peace if we tarry till the morning light. So we got tarry, chakha, chacha, I guess. 2442, morning, which is boker, and light, which is or. So common words. So we should go tell the king's household. So they go to the porter of the city. The porter is 7778 is the number. And they told them, saying, we came to the camp of the Syrians, and behold, there was no man there, neither voice of a man, but the horses tied and the asses tied, and the tents as they were. And he called to the porters, and they told it to the king's house within. And he called the porters. So they go to the porter, he calls these other porters. Porters are shower, janitors, doorkeepers, so those that are indoors. So the king arose in the night, right? So it's still nighttime. So nighttime you have Lila, or Layla, depends how you pronounce it. 3915, so that's the symbol of 391 and a half. And said unto his servants, I will show you what the Syrians have done to us. I will now show you what the Syrians have done to us. They know that we are hungry, therefore are they gone out of the camp to hide themselves in the field. So to the king suspicious about this. But one of the servants answered and said, let some take, I pray thee, 5 of the horses that remain, which are left in the city. Behold, they are as all the multitude of Israel that are left in it. And I say, are even as all the multitude of the Israelites that are consumed. So the idea is that these horses are not very healthy. They're hungry as well. And let us send and see. And they took therefore 2 chariot horses. And the king sent after the host of the Syrians, saying, go and see. So he says, take, that is, don't take all 5 of the horses. You're just going to take 2 of the horses. So they take 2 of the 5. So we got 2 and 5 there. They took 2 chariot horses, sent after the host of the Syrians, go and see. When they went after them unto Jordan, and lo, all the valley was full of garments and vessels which the Syrians had cast away in their haste. So I don't know what to really do with this story. But what is this symbolizing? The Syrians, what are they symbolizing? What is this casting away of the garments and the vessels? And then the people are going to go out of the city and they're going to spoil the tents of the Syrians. So they're just going to go take what the Syrians left behind. So that prophecy is going to be fulfilled. Fine flour being sold for a shekel, measure of fine flour, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel. Yeah, so the king appointed the Lord of whose hand he laid to have charge of the gate. So he's going to put him in charge of the gate, but the people are going to trample him so that he dies. Okay, I'm not sure what that would symbolize.
I see it as people going out. They are supposed to give a loud cry, and if they don't, they are going to come upon mischief. They'll have a punishment. And the gatekeepers are like the media or the message. You know, you relay a message to somebody, and the messengers are supposed to keep relaying it and relaying it and relaying it. It's supposed to spread. And the king did not believe the message, and so he lost his assistant.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's that part of the story on that way, but there's got to be more symbolism. Maybe I'm trying.
Oh, there's tons more. God is going to fight for us while we are delivering a message, a very troubling message to those who don't want to receive it. He'll conquer our enemies for us.
Yeah.
We are regarded as the lepers, you know. It's just like in the preceding chapter. People of God, or at least the prophet, was considered worthy of death.
Yeah.
And look at how he addresses the king, or how he describes the king, like son of a murderer. You know. So the people of God are being blamed for the famine and the, people dying of starvation, when it's the disobedience of the sinners themselves that have brought all these plagues upon them.
Mm-hmm.
Time of the death decree.
Yeah, I don't know some of these numbers. I'm just looking at some of these different words and the numbers associated with them. We got the ass is tied, the horse is tied. It's interesting, the word ass is here, just because it's 2543. And we know 4325 is the word waters, which is the number of days from 11/9 to 9/11. So this is like an inversion of those two numbers. 2560 is what it comes from. The ass.
Well, there's a restraint on Islam, I guess, in verse 10 with the horses and the asses tied.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking, something to do with that.
And verses 9 through 11 are about giving the message.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the good tidings, the message. Well, I know we'll pull it together at some point. Normally on Thursdays, I like to have some kind of summary of this. All we have so far is we have these stories of Elisha in the time of Joram, and who's the king of northern Israel in Samaria. And Elisha's stories are pretty miraculous, but they must be somehow fit together. So again, I would take them as like pieces of a puzzle. Each one of these pieces we need to examine. But I'm not sure how we're going to pull this together. The next story is this woman, Shunammite, her land being restored. You're going to have the murder of Ben-Hadad, and then Jehoram reigning in Judah. So this is the time of Jehoram in Israel, or Joram, and then we're going to have come to Joram in Judah. And so we're going to see that chronology there. But yeah, there's a lot we're going to have to sort through. And any final thoughts before we close with prayer? We got to read Spirit of Prophecy about these stories. And yeah, I'm puzzled a bit how we're going to do this.
God will show us.
Yeah, I know. He always does. But, we have to do the work, right?
Of course.
Yeah. And that story is going to have came to pass at the 7 years end. So there's a whole bunch of things that we have to look at.
A famine of 7 years. Wow. Here we go again.
Yeah. So I think this story might end up kind of tying all of this together. But we'll see. we'll have to approach that on Sunday. Okay, well, let's close with prayer. Dear Father in heaven, thank you again for your goodness and love, for the blessings that we have in studying your word. I pray that those that are not feeling well, such as myself and Dwight, that you can help us to continue to heal. I pray, Lord, that we can trust in you. We know we are living in a difficult time in Earth's history, and we pray that we can have faith like Elisha has. And so, Lord, we just pray that we can be faithful in the little things that you've given us to do. So we pray this and thank you in Jesus' name.